Hello and welcome to Aylowe Space Race Part 4. In the last installment, I ditched the track that I'd spent so long painstakingly making in 3ds Studio Max, and instead decided to try and create a debris field that the ship could fly through. And we saw that I ended up with thousands, what I thought was originally hundreds, but thousands and thousands of debris objects, which you can see on the screen here, some of them. And that just tanked the performance completely, understandably. So that's where we left it off, in me kind of realizing that the player ship moves. I have the waypoint rings that the ships fly through to kind of mark the course, the racetrack. They're now particle rings, so it's a particle effect ring. So really all that's left to do is to try and get the enemy AI to move and play the ships. I constantly have to turn off the debris because I can't move around in Unity with the debris on, and even when I try to play it with the debris on, it's not good. We did see in the last one that down here you have the stats. If you select that while playing the game, it'll show you like your frames per second and all that kind of stuff. And it was saying that I was getting 300 frames per second, but it certainly wasn't playing like I was. So here we can see my beautiful rings that I'm selecting and turning on. I had a strange thing. I just remembered looking at that there when doing this, that sometimes in the game view, which would be this one here, I wouldn't be able to see the rings unless I clicked on them, and as I clicked on them, they would start to appear. I have no idea why that would happen, but that is... Yeah, I'm making the track bigger for some reason. Because in all these assignments, I like to make things difficult for myself, so bigger, I go bigger. Which is not always a good idea. It's completely unnecessary, but I suppose if you're flying around in space, you kind of want that feeling of vastness, and you want it to be not just a little around and back. So I did my best to make it a little bit more interesting, and not as interesting as flying around in a basically a U could be. Just a small assignment. So, and again, it's just place the rings, duplicate them if you need to. Curious. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Final waypoint. So I've duplicated them again. So I actually have more waypoints than I originally thought of. I think we were shown an example scene in the class for like just a basic thing of what the project should be, and there was 3 waypoints in that. And then I obviously go and do something stupid, like creating a debris field with thousands of objects in it and a massive track. Just seems to be too much, really. So you're going to come fly around, come right here. Hey, well, if that's what I want to do, just trying to make things good, or at least as good as I can. But no, doesn't always work that way. I did all right, We should play a drinking game. How many times do I say in a video? Or every time I do, take a shot. Oh. So I hope you're all keeping well during these troubling, difficult times. I am down to... I had a meeting with my course coordinator this afternoon. I was going to say this morning, but yeah. This morning for me, kind of. Or it would normally be if my sleep schedule is just all over the place. One day I'm sleeping all day and then staying up all night and going to bed at like 10 o'clock in the morning. And now I've gotten into a thing where I'm falling asleep really early, not even trying to go to sleep, just like conking out at about 11 or 12, waking up at 6:30, having breakfast, and then getting to work. And I'm not normally a morning person, so that is very strange. But yeah, no, I had a meeting with my course coordinator this afternoon, and this Friday, so what date are we today? So depending on when you're watching this, so the 21st of April, 2020 is what it is today as of recording. This Friday is the due date for most of our assignments. I have a lot left to do, which is why I almost wasn't going to record this today. I was going to spend my time doing assignments, but I really want to get through the backlog and get up to the point, because doing this is enjoyable and relaxing. But it is enjoyable and relaxing, but it's a little bit more difficult looking back on what I'm doing and trying to remember what I was doing or what I was thinking or what was going through my head, and to comment, to talk about what I'm doing. So I'll often just look at the screen and kind of go, well, this is just a boring bit where I'm moving rings around, so what do I talk about? So obviously I'm just going to talk about me. But I feel like it will get easier when I'm actually recording me doing the work. And actually talking about what I'm doing as I'm doing it, and maybe then going off on slightly less random tangents, the randy tangies. But we are near the end of this particular series is the word I was looking for. This video will be about an hour like the rest of them, and the next one will be about an hour, maybe slightly longer, because I don't think I have a recording of the final game. So what I can do is I think I still have the build on my computer, so I can record myself playing the build and add that in, edit it in. So there'll be this video and then one more, and that will end the space race with nobody landing on the moon, unfortunately. And then we will move on to the next one. Not sure what the next one is yet. I'll have to go through my list of, because I think, I had all the great intentions of doing this last year. And I think I said it before that sometimes I just forgot to turn on OBS when I was working from home, which happens. I got slightly better at it. So I think I only have these two assignments that I've already done recorded, which was the graveyard one, which is already up, and this one, which is almost finished. And then I recorded myself doing stuff over the summer. It's my own personal projects, and then I have a lot of stuff from this year. So there's not much for my first year, but I got a lot more. There's plenty of stuff to come up, and so Friday is the deadline for most of my. It's really just written stuff that I have left to do, which I find very boring. But I think that's another thing. Like, if you go into something practical like game design, you might think, oh, there won't be any written work. And depending on the college you go to, there may not be. Or the course that you do. Like, if it's an online course, there's a college here, Pulse College, that does an online diploma or degree. I'm not sure if they do the degree. They do the diploma in game design. It's pretty much all practical as far as from what I've looked up, but it's like $3,000 a year, which if you're in America, that's probably sounds cheap. I know education over there is ridiculous, but I mean, I'm paying a couple of €100 for each year for the course that I'm doing right now, because college here in Ireland, thankfully, is not always that expensive, depending on obviously where you go. There are some ones that would be about $6,000 a year, but I didn't need to do that. But yeah, so there's at least in my course, and I assume it would be the same in a lot of other ones, that there's a lot of written work that you don't expect. And I don't like the written work. I find it very difficult to focus on and concentrate on, and whenever I try to start it, I write about 4 lines, and then I either play a game or go on to the practical stuff that I have to do. So I have until Friday to finish off just loads of practical stuff, or loads of written stuff. And do the final build for my sci-fi RPG, the big, ambitious, stupidly difficult project that I gave myself. But for that one, I have until the 18th of May, I think. So at least I can get all the written stuff out of the way, and then I'll have 2 weeks, over 2 weeks, to get my final build done and see how that goes. So looking forward to getting back into the practical stuff. And actually moving on to some other series. Hopefully then, once everything's done and all my assignments are done, I can actually theoretically and hopefully get back into the Let's Plays, which I have been neglecting just due to time constraints and stuff that I have to keep doing. There's so much work to do. Thankfully I have loads of time because, isolation, quarantine. So I've laid out a load of rings for the track, as we can see, and I'm playing it in a very small window here. And the ship is going, to my mind, looking at it very slowly for a racing game, but that can be changed, and I hope it will be changed. Although as long as the other ships are going the same speed, it's hard to judge distances and stuff. What I could have done, which would have been nice, and I have done it in something this year, is to create a particle system that follows the ship. That looks like their star is moving, so that it just gives that just a little more spaciness to it, rather than just that background that doesn't move. Just adds a little bit, it's these little things that you don't think, like even I'm playing, what am I playing now? Oh yeah, the Final Fantasy VII Remake. How could I forget that? That's amazing, I love it. If you're a fan of the original Final Fantasy, I think, like I am, and I know that some people are saying, oh, it's not the same. It's not the same. Of course it's not the same. It is. They've done an amazing job. I find myself walking around there in the game and I'll stop and just rotate the camera. Because if you play the original Final Fantasy VII, it's all kind of top down, and when you get into the Sector 7 slums for the first time, you hear all about the oppression of having the top plates of Midgar above you, but because it's top down you can't see it. But in the remake, you just look up, you can see it. It is phenomenal. But it's in the likes of that, and recently in Red Dead Redemption 2. Since I started college, when I play games, I tend to not enjoy them less, but analyze them more. And because I'm on a bit of a particle effect kick at the minute, if I see a character walking and the dust coming off their feet from the ground, that's particle effects, but it's a tiny little detail, because it might just be a little tiny little but it just adds so much to the atmosphere and the world, and it's amazing what just a tiny little effect can do, how it can change the feel of the game and the look of the game, and it can immerse you in it a lot more, rather than just walking around on ground that it doesn't even feel like you're really in the world, that you're having any impact on it. So just a little small dust poof, just a little purr, and petit purr is all you need. So my race works. I got from the start to the finish, but nothing happens when you enter the finish line, and it's a race of one at the minute. There's nobody, you're not going up against anybody, which is the kind of race that I would like, because I do not run and I'm not fit. So I'd always win a race if it was just me. Actually, that's not true. I'd probably still lose the race if it was just me. I'd never get to the finish line. But I would certainly lose if there was anybody else involved. Which is why I get into game design. Because I can sit at a computer and then make really awesome games that look cool and can make me feel like I've gotten out of the house. VR is going to be interesting. I think we'll be getting into VR next year. I hope so. I was hoping we'd get to do it this year. We haven't. Which is kind of lucky though, because I know that the current second years of the HND that I'm doing, they're doing a VR project, some of them, and since the college is closed because of the whole COVID-19 thing, they don't have access to the VR equipment in the college, and not everybody has VR equipment at home. So that meant that their project kind of took a hit. But hopefully this will all be cleared up by the time I get to go back in September. Although I think they're thinking of October, reopening in October now. And I hope that they do, because it would be quite a shame if... I mean, you can't really push it off too much longer than that, really. So I'm still looking at the waypoints and the particle effects. Oh, I see. I'm just going to organize my... See, I'm getting better at organizing stuff. I mean, they're all just called waypoints, so my naming conventions haven't really improved, but like you can see, well, I think I had to learn to organize my pointing at the screen. Like you can see my hierarchy with this project. That's one good thing I learned is organizing the hierarchy, because if I were to... if I was to open this debris thing, there would be thousands of objects. So I had to do something to clean it up, because I couldn't find anything in the hierarchy when I had them. Oh, but these are already in an object, so this is an exterior boundary. So I am creating the bounding box that I've been talking about for the last 3 episodes. Kind of going, why did I bother making a track when I could have just put a box around? And it turned out that's what I do. So, you know, great minds think alike, I guess. Past me and present me. I do like that it's just called error. 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 Yes. Insanity. Are you guys going insane? Is everybody going insane? Is it just me? Is the isolation getting to you? I mean, it shouldn't bother me so much, because I do have a lot of work to do. I think the other thing is that when you're doing stuff like this, like recording this kind of stuff, it just feels like you're talking to yourself, which, I mean, technically I am. But it adds to that kind of, am I going crazy? No, I'm not going crazy. I was always crazy. Crazy. So I create a bounding box. And if you haven't watched the last few episodes, I highly recommend you go and do it, so that you know what I'm talking about. But if you don't want to wade through 3 hours of listening to me, what I'm using this for is to make sure that the player doesn't just fly off in a random direction and leave the racetrack. So if they go outside this box, a message will pop up saying, you know, out of bounds, or, you know, please return to the track, or, you know, you are disqualified, kind of thing. I can't remember exactly which one I implement, whether I just, you know, game over, you have left the track, or please return to the track within a certain number of seconds, or you will be disqualified. We'll find out, I guess, at some stage. So I am putting a texture onto error. Okay. I didn't think I did this, but it's funny that I was just talking about this. I mean, is it bothering anybody else that I haven't changed the name to? It's still just error. Error. It bothered me. The only reason I can think of for putting a particle system on this box is if I am actually doing what I was saying a few minutes ago and putting a kind of a star effect, a moving star kind of thing. That's the only reason I can think of. Seriously, change the name. Error. Thank you. What are you going to change it to? What is it? You can see that there is a particle effect here. So this is the outer boundary. Okay, so it's not stars. So if I have an outer boundary, I must have an inner boundary. Maybe I'm trying to have a particle effect that kind of creates a track in space. I don't know. We'll find out what I'm trying to do. This was a year ago, and I've had a lot of other stuff to do since then. This is one of the first assignments, so I probably would have done this in October of my first year, which would have been not October just gone, but the October before that. So October of 2018 would have been roughly when I was doing this, I think. Sorry, just check. My phone is... sorry, just stuff popping up on my phone. Nothing important at the minute though, so that's okay. I gotta keep checking it because it's important to keep in contact during this time with people. So if anybody is messaging me, reaching out because they need some company or they need kind of to communicate with somebody, then I will certainly be there for them as long as I'm awake. Because I'm on some different sleep schedules to a lot of people I know. Because some people are, and also because mine keeps changing as well as the days go by. So I seem to be on a rotating sleep schedule. Maybe so that I can be awake for everybody at some stage. This day I'm awake at the same time as this person, and then next week I'll be awake at the same time as this person, so that I can just make sure that I'm there for everybody when I can be, if not every day. And it doesn't matter to me what my sleep schedule is, other than it's, it is different to other people. So when I reach out to other people, I either have to wait. It becomes very disjointed and drawn out conversation, because I'll message them when they're asleep, and by the time they respond to me, I'm probably asleep. And then I'll get that message when I wake up a couple of hours later and respond to them, and they're, might be asleep or busy or doing something. So one conversation can take like a couple of days, really. But it doesn't. My sleep schedule doesn't actually bother me being all over the place, because I don't. One of the good things about the isolation and social distancing and stuff, and I always try and find the positive, is that I don't have a job to go to, and college is closed, so I don't actually have to stick to an imposed schedule. So I can actually just work when I'm awake and sleep when my body says sleep. Wake up when my body says wake up, and then just do my work during the hours that I'm awake. And then it doesn't matter. Everything's still getting done. It's just getting done on my schedule, as opposed to having to conform to a societally imposed schedule. Everyone's saying you must sleep at night and wake up and do your 9 to 5, and it's bullshit. Fuck off. I'll do what I want. Not that I'll do what I want. So obviously, I've done the 9 to 5. I've done the jobs and stuff. But I've never gotten used to it, and that's when people, you'll just get used to it. You just need to train yourself to go to sleep at night. It doesn't work like that. Your body clock is your body clock. And if you try and fight it, it's like, yeah, sure, you can. I've woken up at 7 or 8 in the morning and gone to work for years. Retail is different, because it would have been, sometimes I'd be up at 7 to be in for 9, and then sometimes I wouldn't be in until 1 p.m. so I could get a bit of a lie-in. But still, you're forcing yourself into a schedule. And yes, I can get up and I can function, and especially with college, because I'm either in at 9 or 10, so I'm either up at 7 or 8 to get into college for 9 or 10. My brain doesn't kick in until after 6 most days. It doesn't matter what time I go to sleep or what time I wake up at. Like, I can get up and I can function, but I find it more difficult to concentrate and figure things out. So I work much better in the evenings than at nighttime. Always have. That's just something. It doesn't matter what time I go to sleep at, or how much people tell me that I just need to train myself or that kind of thing. Like my natural thing has always just been kind of easier to sleep during the day, and my brain kicks in at night, which is what keeps me awake. Um, so I found whenever like a summer holiday from schools or colleges or take a week off work or whatever it was, whenever I have time where I don't have to conform, uh, my body would just naturally slip back into that pattern. Um, and then it was so much harder to get out of it. So it's nice to know now that I can just let my body do whatever it wants, whatever feels right for it, and not worry about, oh well, tomorrow I'm going to have to be up at 9 to go into college, or I'm going to so at least for the time being during all of this, the one bright side is that I'm not having to worry about trying to force myself to go to sleep when it goes against my natural cycle. Okay, I still have no idea what I'm trying to do here. I assume I'm trying to get some kind of outline so that you can see a border. So there's a visual, think of like the, what do you call them? The barrier things that they put up in the gutters and bowling lanes for kids and people like me that are terrible at bowling that request them. Just a little track, or like lights on a runway, that kind of thing. That would just show the edge of the boundary so that you don't fly out. In all honesty, I can't remember whether or not I get this to work. I'm going to assume that I didn't, because I feel like if I did get it to work, I would remember that it was there. So I'm assuming this isn't in the final build, and I end up scrapping it at some stage. But as I say, I don't actually remember. I'm not 100%, so don't quote me on that. And you can't prove that I said it, even though this is recorded. I will deny it to the death if I was wrong. But yeah, because right now it's just looking like, it's just looking like a big red blob in the racetrack. If you're flying through, it just looks like somebody's shining a laser on the camera. It's quite annoying. Oh. I'm not even looking at what I'm doing in the particle. And I am going to continue pointing at the screen as if you can see what I'm pointing at. So this here, right? You see this? That is what I'm talking about. I'm not paying any attention to what's going on in what I'm actually doing in the particle system. Because if I don't know what I'm trying to make, then I guess it doesn't matter what settings I'm using. For me, for present me. Past me, this is important. This is important. Yeah. If you're wondering why the pen, when I'm not writing anything, because it gives me something to do while I'm just watching this. And makes me feel smart. I can, maybe I should get a pipe. Go to pipe dream. Just ponder. Of course, if I wanted to look smart, or smarter, I could just wear my glasses. So very, very good. I do believe that is perfect. Yes. Spot on. You did want a gassy plume. A plume of gas. Yes, I think that looks quite good. But no. I mean, emitting from the edge of the box. But now I am looking at this. What I will say is that it is not emitting from the edge. Or is it? It's emitting from or maybe it is emitting from the edge. No, it's emitting from the middle. So I would assume emitting from the edge would either be this box, this green one, or this white one. If that white, I can't tell. I am colorblind, so don't at me. But it certainly seems like that's coming from the volume, and I know that volume is another option rather than edge for emit from. So I don't know if that's just a bug in Unity, but it certainly doesn't look like it's coming from the volume on the box. It looks kind of like a red aurora borealis. Just there, not when it actually gobs up, then it just looks like a red menace. Ensure read-write is enabled on the particle system's texture. Little error. I'm very bold at looking at those errors, because I find that, especially with now maybe some of the packages that I've imported into newer versions of Unity, because I'm now on only 19.2, I believe. If I import certain packages, and I import everything in those packages, and I have no control over what's in them, well, other than I can untick certain things, but if you bring in stuff that have scripts in them and that kind of stuff, you can get errors from those packages because something in them is no longer supported in the newer versions of Unity, and it doesn't affect the gameplay, but you will just constantly get these, and again pointing at the screen, these errors popping up, yellow and red. If the red error doesn't stop me from playing it, where it will say all compiler errors need to be fixed, and I'm not actually encountering any problems with the gameplay, I tend to just ignore them. And I know that that's terrible, and I actually shouldn't do it, and it's really bad practice. And if I ever get a job, when I get a job in the industry, I need to make sure that I guess only if I get a job as a programmer. If I don't get a job as a programmer, then I probably won't have to worry about that kind of stuff. We'll have to wait and see. Wait and see. Now, so am I giving up entirely on the particle thing for the boundary? I have a vague memory that I didn't spend too long trying to do this. It's kind of coming back to me now as I watch just it not working at all. Normally, I would be the kind of stubborn bastard that would just go, well, I'm going to make it work. And I will waste all my time doing that to the detriment of the rest of the project. But I think in this circumstance, I don't do that. I actually do the smart thing and move on to something else, or just settle for a different way of doing something, which I think in the end is just to have a message pop up that says you're going out of bounds. See, this is what I mean about them popping on the screen. I have to click them for them to show up, and I don't know why that. Oh, no, I do. Yep. Yeah, I'm an idiot. It's because they're a particle system, and the particle system doesn't start playing until you select it. So I have to click on them all to actually start each particle system so the rings will appear. Obviously. Come on. We all know that. So, outer boundary. Has been duplicated. And I'm placing a capsule collider. What the devil for? I mean, that looks like a sphere, not a capsule. Well, I can't scale capsule that way. Interesting. It's very big, isn't it? Very big. Where are we at? Okay, that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Presumably one of these is going to be an inner boundary, so I have to assume that what I'm going to have is the inner boundary would be when you leave that, you'll get a message saying turn back or you'll be disqualified, and then if you leave the outer boundary, you will be disqualified. That has to be my assumption. I apparently am still focused on, determined to get a particle system thingy majigger around the outside border, I guess. Border is not the word I was looking for. Border is a word, and it'll do. I do all this and I never put stars in. Oh. The things we do when we're young. So that's the radius of the emitter. Well, that is very, there we go. Okay. Particles flying off in all directions. Why? This is why it's good to look back, you know? Figure out what you were thinking. I mean, hindsight is 2020. And obviously, looking back, knowing what I know now, I know that what I'm doing here is wrong. It's not wrong, it's just weird. Yeah, so you kind of look back and you go, what the fuck was I thinking? I don't even know. That's the sad part. I don't even know. But let's just say that it's because I've learned so much that I can't go back to such a basic way of thinking. And not because, you know, I have a terrible memory and I'm getting old. The mind is the first thing to go. Although in my case it was my left knee. And then my left elbow. It's like the left side of my body is just going, fuck, I couldn't be bothered. And the right side of my body is going, you know what, I think you're right, but it's not quite there yet. So Visual Studio Max takes ages to... Visual Studio Max? I'm thinking of 3D Studio Max. Visual Studio does take a while to open. So, what are we saying? So, I had... Yeah. Oh, I just opened it for the crack. Sure, why not? Just make sure it's still there. Oh, so yes, tag the outer boundary as a disqualified so that when you exit it, you will get a disqualified message in the console down here. Make sure you keep an eye on the console, keep an eye on the console. There you go. Disqualified. Disqualified 6 times as well. 12 times, yeah. So it is working no matter where I go. And yes, things are still clipping in. We saw that issue in the last video, and I fixed it by extending the far clipping plane of the main camera. But it extended quite a ways to the point where it seemed like a very high number, and I didn't want to extend it any further, I'm guessing, or just didn't think of it. Plus, as we saw in this video, I did make this track bigger and longer, so in an attempt to make it look like I'd put enough work into it to make it. I say look like, I guess I did, you know, I'd put enough work into it to make it a longer game. And at least I'm not putting in like paywalls or, you know, needless grinding to kind of get the playtime up like some companies do. Not naming any names, just saying. Seems to be quite a common occurrence these days, along with other things. But hey. Oh, excuse me. Oh, fuck. At least it was my right elbow. Ay. 'Tis getting very warm in here. Is anybody else warm in here, or is it just me? It's getting hot in here. But I get so hurt. No, don't worry, I'm not going to do it on camera. I'll wait. It's a different channel, although it might get more subscribers. But no, I have my dignity and my pride. What? Well, I'm back on the main camera. I think, am I going to do 30,000 for a far clipping plane? Seems like a lot. It doesn't matter if they clip in or not, really, does it? I mean, they're particles. I guess I could have just had them slowly come to life. There are many ways I could have done it. And that's the joy of game design. There are so many ways to do everything. The best and worst part of game design is that there is no one way. So sometimes you can get a little bit overwhelmed with the different ways to do things. And you're like, oh, it's like, oh, I could do it that way, or which way would be quicker, which way would be easiest, which would be the best for the player experience and for performance, you know, all that kind of stuff. So there's a lot of things to consider, but there's a lot of freedom and creativity in how you can get stuff done, and I think that's quite cool. If you're wondering why I'm putting an invisible sphere inside the hole, that is going to be a trigger so that it will detect when the player goes through. And I believe I put a little sound effect on it, just a little ding, to show that you've flown through the ring. It doesn't really matter in the end because you don't actually, it doesn't, you know, it's not like you have to hit one in order to hit the other one, or it's not like there's a counter going up saying you've flown through this many rings. I don't think there's a counter going up. I can't imagine why there would be, because it doesn't really matter how many rings you fly through. I mean, the aim of the game is to fly through them all and get to the end. And if I had more time, I probably would have implemented a system where you couldn't skip a ring, so you'd have to go through them sequentially in order, which I don't think would have been that difficult. Although maybe in my first year it would have been a little bit too advanced for me. But I think I could muddle through it now. Just, you know, maybe not. No, take these off. So I only need them for distances, so I don't actually need them when I'm staring at a computer screen. Also, I had a cataract in my right eye. I don't know, 2 years ago now? I can't actually remember. I had it out last year, I think, or the year before. So I've always needed my glasses for distances, but when the cataract was removed and they put in a new lens in this eye, they gave me one for distances, so I can see fuck all out of this up close. This screen is just a blurry mess, but it's better for distances. So I've kind of gotten used to kind of seeing out of this eye for things up close and this eye for distances. So I don't actually wear my glasses as much anymore, which is kind of handy. I still need them. This eye isn't perfect, but you know what? Nothing's perfect in this world, so I just kind of, it's certainly a lot easier than what I had before. I spent hours in that hospital when I started to lose my sight in my right eye, and they ran tests and ran tests and ran tests and had me waiting around for results for ages. And the reason that they took so long was because they had to double check the results, because they did not think that somebody my age would have a cataract. So they thought it was a hemorrhage or something at one point. I was like, oh, that doesn't sound good. I was like, no, it's just a cataract though, it's fine. Just, you know, put you on a waiting list for a year and then we'll zap it out of you. So that was cool. So I have plastic lens in this eye. And if I wear my glasses when I'm working, I start to get headaches now because I think it does screw with this eye a little bit. Because I think it just makes it worse. Because it's trying to correct this eye for distance. And this eye's already bad for stuff up close, so I assume it's going to make that worse. This is very dull watching. Let's just scrub through here a little bit. This is just me putting in a sphere into each of these. And because I created so many rings, I created just more work for myself than I needed. You know, the fucking smart thing would have been to do is just duplicate the sphere and move it into each of the rings, rather than having to put in a sphere and then scale it up to the right size. This is what I mean. Don't give yourself more work than you need. I've said it in a couple of other videos. Like, if you have something you can reuse it. Don't go and make it again. You're just gonna create more work for yourself that you don't need. This is just gonna take chunks out of this video. There we go. That should be all of them. Great. Every waypoint has a sphere. Good to know. And then every sphere will have, oh, see, this is another reason why I should have duplicated it. Oh, they all have a sphere collider that's trigger. That's fine. So I'm going to add a tag. So I have the disqualified tag to say if you go out of bounds. This is going to be a waypoint tag. So basically, if the player collides with that, you get a ding. I assume for testing purposes, I'm just going to put a message in the console that just says, like, player has flown through. So you can see the track taking shape. So I'm still doing some slight modifications, moving rings around. So now I'm going to select all the spheres so that I can tag them all together, which is, at least I have the brains enough to do that, rather than going through them individually and clicking tag, waypoints. You can do them all together if you select them all. So that's cool. Saves a bit of time. But having a waypoint with the spheres inside of them as a trigger is not going to do anything unless I write some code to make them do something. Otherwise, I'm just going to fly through a sphere. An invisible sphere. Invisisphere. So I assume, is this my mouse? No, my mouse is over here. So why am I doing nothing? Oh, I'm checking out on the... Okay. So I'm putting in tags for each individual waypoint. Now this could be used to say that you have to go through them sequentially, which I don't do. What I'm using this for is to set up the AI so that the other ships will fly, and they will go through the rings sequentially. So how many do I end up with? So you start at, so I've got 17. Yeah, we don't need to see me do all this. Final waypoints, go through and tag them all. So then I have to go through them individually and tag them. So I've got an enemy script. I have an enemy script. Cool. So we're going to get the AI working. Yes. So there are going to be a few weird cuts in this because I keep jumping back to my teacher's website that show the examples. And I think for GDPR reasons, I can't show that. So there will be some weird cuts. Basically, it's just a character controller, vector 3, and then I have to put in all these waypoints, which again, having 17, I just made it much more difficult for myself. So we will see how this works. Okay, so we have all the waypoints in, so you get the enemy controller, which is the lowercase e, so it's equal to the game object.getComponent character controller, which will be on the object that the script is on. So that is fine. but we have to do something with it. So you'll want to look at the next waypoint and move towards it. And when you hit that, that's the other reason for the triggers, the spheres, the invisispheres within them, within the hoops. The invisispheres within the hoops are there so that when the enemy flies through them, it will look at the next waypoint on the list. So we shall see how this works. So transformed up, forward. That's strange. So it's got a mesh collider that's convex. It needs the script on it if we want it to do anything. It will need a character controller on it if you're calling that in the script. Although I think for a space race game, the rigid body would be enough. A character controller is used to control player characters, usually humanoid characters. So you can see it's got like slope limits and step offsets and stuff. So that's how you the angle that you can go up on a hill and the height you can go up on steps and stuff. So it tends to be more for characters. That's not something you need in the spaceship. And I think forces are better. I think I've said this in other videos. Forces are better for spaceships and physics and that kind of stuff. So we're going to have to the enemy controller. Well, we set that on start. So even if you expose this in the inspector, if you set it in the start function of the script, you can leave it empty and it will just assign the enemy controller to it anyway. So that's fine. Waypoints, I've got to do each one, drag and drop them individually, and then play the game. Does any ship move? It is not looking like it. There's no speed. Transform direction to forward. I mean, is that a thing? It's not a thing. You're going to transform to translate. Oh, transform direction. Just popped back to check the website there, so it's vector 3.forward. Okay. So let's check this out and see if this works. No. See, they just don't want to move. I'm convinced I've not indicated a speed anywhere, so I don't see why they would be moving. But you know what? Let's go back here. Do I figure it out? Do I figure it out? Do I figure it out? Because I would need to have a float for speed, and then multiply this by speed by time dot delta time. That is what I think is the problem, and we will find out if that is the problem in the next one. Oh, it's getting dark. Yeah, so we shall see. And the next one will be the last one in the Space Race series, so keep your eyes open for that one. If you like the video, hit the like button, share it with anyone you think might be interested in the content, and please consider subscribing if you want to be kept up to date for all the future craziness that's going to go forward. So thanks for watching, and we'll see you next time.